The easiest money a speculator can make is when a sector goes from hated to tolerated. And today we're going to talk about the legendary commodities investor who gave us that quote. Rick Rule has been buying into Canadian oil and gas stocks. He sees a fantastic opportunity here, structural bull run coming. He thinks these stocks are even better valued than their American peers. They offer a better long-term potential. And he thinks he's put together a couple key names that could double or triple within the next 5 years. Today, we're going to talk about 3 specific stocks that I think outline specific parts of the sector that you need to own to build the perfect portfolio. We're going to be talking about natural gas. We're going to be talking about royalties. And of course, we're going to start off by talking about oil sands. And this is one of the first things that Rick Rule has talked about, a company he thinks you need to own, Canadian Natural Resources. Now, of course, this is probably not the cheapest company on the block. This is probably not the biggest total return potential over the short term. But what it is the largest oil and gas producer in Canada. They own some of the longest reserve life assets out there, and they own a wealth of them, which means there is zero risk of them running out any point within mine or most people's timeframes. I'm going to be investing for, let's say, even 20, 35 years. There is still zero risk of me looking at Canadian Natural and thinking, man, where are they going to get assets beyond year 10, 15, 20? Because these guys can last just about forever. They have a fantastic wealth of assets. They've been investing into it. Stock hasn't really moved in a year, which means that the valuation has not been running over the last little while Canadian oil and gas as a sector has, meaning that maybe there's some opportunity there. They also pay out a fantastic dividend, which Rick thinks takes away a lot of that time value of money challenge that a lot of investors have pointed out when investing in oil and gas. They say, hey, too early. I'm not willing to invest. I'm going to wait. Well, if you're getting paid 5% a year to wait, you're still beating inflation. You're not necessarily beating the S&P 500, but as a lower risk option, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of investors. That's part of why I own it in my tax advantage accounts, like my TFSA and my RRSP. And I think as a need to own stock, this makes a lot of sense as the cornerstone of an oil and gas position. That's how I have it positioned in my personal portfolio. I think this one is probably not the most risky, probably not going to be the highest flyer. It doesn't have all the same kind of massive short-term elements that things like natural gas has. It doesn't have that same sort of income-focused opportunity that royalties do, but it makes a lot of sense to own as a larger position. It's a much larger cap. I don't think it's going to move as fast, but I do think long run, these guys are staying around forever. It is a blue chip, solid dividend growth player, and that's how I own it in my portfolio. I think that's probably the way that most investors should, right? Obviously, I don't know your portfolio, but I mean, even Rick Rule owns this as a has to own. I think it makes the most sense to have it as that cornerstone of your portfolio to help build around. I do want to give honorable mention here to Suncor, which is another stock that Rick owns in the same area, the same kind of need to own. He also talks about the fact they got the crazy long reserve life. He talks about the fact that it's a really well-run company. Suncor, I think, has moved a little bit more over the last little while. I prefer Canadian Natural because they've been the sort of consolidator of oil sands assets over the last couple of years, really aggressively buying out competitors. Suncor is this like amazing long-term opportunity. They are an integrated oil major. If you're ever thinking about a company that's going to just last forever, no matter what happens in Canada, and you just want to collect that dividend and you're not really stressed about the growth, Suncor is probably another one to own. And Rick owns it in his portfolio, so it's got that kind of seal of endorsement there. The next category of stock that Rick owns are royalties, specifically freehold royalties and Prairie Sky. Now, these guys make a lot of sense, and they fit in a different space than the producers. If you look at a 5-year chart of freehold here, you'll see that they are a fantastic total return story. The stock's up 204% over the last 5 years on a fairly chilled out, less volatile path. If you look at that and you contrast that with just about any producer out there, way less volatility, and look at that dividend yield. You're talking a dividend yield of 7+%. These guys are a fantastic income option, in my opinion. I think they're right up there with pipelines in the way that they provide stable, consistent income. They're that one step removed from the actual commodity risk that a producer is taking, that one step removed from the same kind of volatility. Maybe they don't offer you the same kind of explosive growth to the upside in a future where we see new pipelines built or more growth in the Canadian oil sands or more growth in the natural gas sector or whatever it might be. But what they do offer you is a little bit de-risked, a great yield, and a fantastic total return story in the long run. Think about it. Where else are you getting 7% on a stock that's going up year over year, where you have a strong compound annual growth rate in the stock price on top of the fact you're getting paid out a crazy yield? Just about nowhere, right? We're talking 7%. Where do you find that, right? That's where these guys just shine. And at times like this, these guys are cheap right? You are not paying a huge premium to own somebody that's paying you at that crazy amount. And again, if you're looking at, for example, a TFSA, an RSP, place where you're maybe not willing to take the same kind of risk that you might in a non-registered account, owning more royalties helps de-risk your whole portfolio. Takes away that little bit of commodities risk, provides a fantastic yield that maybe you'll put back in the royalties, or maybe you're going to be investing into producers to take advantage of the yield. Who knows? But still, awesome opportunity. Rick owns these guys and owns Prairie Sky, both fantastic, well-run Canadian firms. I think there's also Topaz in the sort of mix there among a lot of the more prevalent investors. They talk about these guys as not necessarily interchangeable, but very much the same kind of really high quality stock to own. A lot of folks who don't necessarily want to own oil and gas will own the royalties just because, again, the yield on these guys is ridiculous. The third stock, and I think the most interesting stock that Rick owns, is ARC Resources. He calls this the best run oil and gas stock in North America, which is high praise considering that includes all of the super majors in the States down there. But ARC Resources is a special opportunity, and it headlines a group of stocks that I think are a fantastic choice right now. That is the Canadian oil and gas, natural gas forward stocks. We're talking Tourmaline, Peyto, talking Birchcliff, all stocks that he also owns. But ARC Resources is the headliner because it's his favorite. And you might be surprised by that because if you look at them, they're down over the last year, which is just wild, right? If think about the opportunity in Canadian natural gas over the last year. LNG Canada came online. We've had billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars going into the AI trade, building out these huge data centers that need all this electricity, creating a gigantic runway for natural gas. We've got billions of dollars in LNG facilities getting built all over North America, drawing out the cheap price natural gas and replacing it with a much higher price that is going straight to these producers. The story here is incredibly bullish. It's so bullish that just about everybody's on board. You're seeing natural gas names, specifically names like ARC, like Tourmaline, all over folks who are looking at this long-term build out. You're seeing a lot of really high return names that have just killed it over the last year, like Peyto, all over. Lots of investors who've been buying in over the last year are just so pleased with their investment. ARC hasn't really gone anywhere. And I think that's part of the appeal right now because ARC Resources did have a sort of short-term challenge. They had that Attachie project. They ran into some technical issues. According to some sources, that's been resolved. Now, we're not going to see that reported until the next quarter earnings, the Q4 earnings. And you know what? Maybe sources are wrong. But regardless, you have seen the stock sell off dramatically since July in a time where the rest of the industry is more and more and more and more bullish, giving that huge reversal opportunity. You're seeing a huge amount of expansion in the natural gas opportunity over the next year. You're seeing prices already starting to run up, and we are only in November. Winter is coming. It's going to bring a huge amount of natural gas demand. And with that, you will see the start of a real bull cycle. Rick owns, if you think about it, he owns two majors, right? Canadian Natural and Suncor. These are you have to own them, cornerstone of the industry. He owns two royalties, fantastic yield opportunities, insulated from some of that risk, de-risk the whole portfolio. And then he's got natural gas, ARC and Tourmaline and Peyto and Birchcliff, right? And he thinks that these guys are going to be the kick start to this huge bull run. Natural gas is going to run first. I mean, it's pretty much evident. We see it all across the industry. Everybody's eyes are on natural gas right now, with oil being this longer term story that might take a little while to run, but when it does, just watch out because it will absolutely burn faces off of the bears as it rushes upwards. It will be such a massive bull run that you'll see it in all the major investors on BNN suddenly clamoring to buy oil and gas. You'll see it on CNBC when oil and gas stocks are up there the way that AI is right now. That's when you'll know the bull run is really going. Right now, it's whispers. And that's where the opportunity is. Rick Rule is buying into these stocks. He thinks this is the same kind of opportunity we've seen in gold over the last year. And look at the way that played out, right? With the commodity up 4x. And of course, investors making hundreds or thousands of times on their money, depending on the stocks they owned, the options they owned, whatever way they chose to play it. I think by combining a major oil sands company with that long-term, that cornerstone of the portfolio, a little bit more stable, still a great yield. Combining that with a royalty company, combining the opportunity to de-risk the portfolio a little bit, get a great yield, and sort of take away the time value of money challenge, right? You don't have to worry quite as much because you're getting paid out not just 5%, but your whole portfolio is getting pulled up by this royalty company. And then also having major exposure to the shorter term natural gas opportunity happening right now. Buying into that opportunity before it runs. I think that makes so much sense for a portfolio. That is very much the way that Rick Rule has structured his. He has pointed out those names as fantastic winners, and he's given tidbits out there. He thinks that this portfolio, right, his majors, his royalties, and his natural gas focused names, these guys are going to double or triple within the next 5 years, what he calls a reasonable time frame. Now, he is very famously not somebody who necessarily tries to time things to the year. He doesn't think the stock market operates on a 1 year time frame. But if you think about it, double or triple your money in 5 years, most investors would be thrilled to see that and get paid a 5+% dividend along the way. Sign me up. I am very much interested in that story. And I think that there are even bigger opportunities in the longer run, but still, double or triple would be fantastic. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about the stocks that Rick Rule owns up here in Canada? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there others you own instead? I'd love to hear those thoughts. Of course, I want to hear, are you buying into these stocks now, or are you trying to hold out and wait for the opportunity to switch? Are you buying mainly natural gas and you're going to buy oil later? What's your strategy? Because that's super interesting to me. As always, if you like this video, you like what we do here on the channel, please do like it. If you like following these Canadian topics and talking about these stocks and industries that don't get the same kind of love, please do subscribe. And I hope I see you in the next one.